Okay, so without delaying any further, I would like to introduce Mr. Amarjit Singh, who is trained at Social Systems Safety and Environmental Auditor. He has experience in conducting training, consultancy, and auditing on sustainability, CSR, and social management systems, focusing on labor, ethics, safety, and environment. Some of the standards that he had provided training for are RSPO PNC, MSPO, SA 8000, International Sustainability and Carbon Certification, SEDEX Meta, ETI Base Code, BSCI Code of Conduct, RBA Code of Conduct, ISO 4501, and many others. He has also a Master's in Science degree in Engineering Business Management from University of Warwick, England, an MBA degree from Cranfield School of Management, another MSc degree from University Putra, Malaysia, as well as another one in zoology. Mr. Amarjit Singh has also worked with SGS Malaysia as a general manager for certification and training, where he has conducted certification audits and training on various standards and code of conducts, social system audits, greenhouse gases projects, in SGS Malaysia is also a member of the SGS group based in Geneva and operates in more than 130 countries. Before assuming this position, he also worked as a works manager in a British multinational, Rivertex Fine Waters. He was also the quality assurance manager in a defense-related manufacturing plant called SME Ordnance. He has more than 26 years of hands-on experience in different areas of management, some of which includes general management, manufacturing, service industry, business development, business strategic planning, performance improvement, materials management, logistics, security, quality engineering, Six Sigma, safety and environmental audits, budgeting, and strategic cost management. We know that Mr. Amarjit here is very, very qualified to be giving us this training gaps in audit standards related to forced labor and decent work in the oil, palm, and manufacturing industry in Malaysia. So, Mr. Amarjit, please take the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this training. I was asked to talk on this gap in audit standards related to forced labor and decent work in oil palm and manufacturing industry in Malaysia. So I'll be specifically talking only about forced labor and decent work in standards. Yeah. So welcome for this webinar. You will, if you're not muted, mute yourself before joining. Please be, if you have video, you be mindful of the background noise you have. The mic may pick it up. You have video turned on, please be mindful of your surrounding. That's very important. Be aware the meeting is being recorded. And also if any question, just press the chat button and I'll try to answer this training. It will be very good that if you use the old-fashioned way of taking down notes, because some of the slides I presented will be copyright or whatever, which I will not be present. I'm not giving any slides. So please take notes. Yeah. Okay. I have given a quiz there. Yeah. This quiz is about, is there any auditable standard? I'm talking about auditable standard available to Malaysian palm oil industry that addresses all forced labor and decent work related issue in a simple, clear, and concise manner. So we have a lot, maybe part of this training, we have auditors from certification body. They will know whether, is it easy to give a non-conformity? Yeah, they will tell you that. I will not tell what standards they are. Any standards we have in Malaysia, we have audited. Do you have any standards which address that? And also, if you have accreditation body, I think a few of them, assessors are here. So please answer this question. Is there any auditable standard? I'm looking for auditable standard, not standard, available to Malaysian palm oil industry that addresses all forced labor and decent work related issue in a simple, clear manner, concise manner. And this is very important because now we have a lot of issue coming up regarding forced labor, decent labor, and maybe some of the organization, I use the word organization, I don't say oil pump industry or what, they're not aware of the requirements or what is required. Huh? So you can, what do you call it? You can submit your poll. Eh? Okay, this is about me background. And nowadays, when you talk about sustainability, you need to know everything. Yeah, right from accounting to environmental, about safety, about project planning, it's about climate change, about social systems, all that, it's not only like one thing. So it's very important that a person handling sustainability issue, including labor, forced labor, and decent work, need to be aware of all that. Yeah, that's the reason I put this slide, because I've gone through all the areas. Huh? Now, this is what I'll be discussing today. Number one, drivers for closing the gap in audit standard, if there is any gap. Yeah, because I think you already answered your poll question. Later we'll see what is it. What's the issue in development implementing of forced labor and decent work standard, if any? And I'd like to draw the boundary of this presentation or the scope of this presentation. So I'll talk about what is forced labor and decent work. Huh? It will be very short because I think you have gone through this training. Then some of the fundamentals that need to be met for social systems, standard. What is it? Yeah, there are some things that we need to address when you say I have a social system standard. And of course, the basic question, what is a standard? Huh? Because is it a standard? So there are a lot of types of standards. We'll talk about that. Then another thing, why do you need a quality Malaysian standard for palm oil? A quality one, that means a good one, robust, and so that we can be proud that we have a Malaysian standard, yeah, if we have, or whether it's international or whatever. Now, there are some basic principles for setting standards for forced labor and decent work. We'll look into that. Another important is role of management in standard management system. Huh? So we can say we are sustainability system, but is it a management system? So because there's another accreditation guideline standard, which is ISO 17021 Part 1. If you want to get accreditation, you must have a management system. Huh? So do we have a management system? And the basic question, because we are talking about auditable standard, what is audit? And we'll look into the definition very briefly, because I believe that most of you are experts in these audits. So I'll talk about audit criteria, objective evidence. We're talking about objective, not subjective. Then what do you call it? Then audit finding, conformity, non-conformity. And the most important, if you're auditor, whether you're internal auditor, whether you're certification body assessor, auditor, or accreditation body assessor, writing a NC, you need certain elements. Are there elements available in the Malaysian or international standard which we apply in the palm oil industry? And what's the meaning of auditable standard? And why we have to have certification for the forced labor and decent labor, and conclusion. So I hope we go through this. It's very, maybe I'm covering a very wide topic, because without covering all this, it's very difficult to, because all of us need to understand, have a basic understanding of what is the auditable standard. So we have to go through all this. Huh? Now, there may be gaps, I don't know, because I depend on your question answer you have given in the poll just now. There may be gaps in the audit standard related to forced labor and decent work. So it may be in the standard by itself, yeah, or maybe the scheme owner, because each standard will have a scheme owner. So maybe because of the scheme owner, maybe they can make sure that we don't have any gap. Then the certification body also, the auditor auditing, they may have experienced certain issues. They can bring up to the scheme owners and to accreditation body and telling them, when we audit, this is the issues we face. And actually they are good because they are the one who can contribute. Of course, we have the accreditation body. They are the one who advise, because if it's a Malaysian standard, they are the one who will say, this is the thing you are not doing right, stop it, better do it better. And they are the one who are the one to advise how to set standards, so that whenever we have a standard, it meets the international requirement, not our local requirement, because we are focusing on international issues which we are facing, not local issues. And also we are looking into estate and mills and refineries. This also is an issue because they also should be saying, because maybe they are part of the setting of the standard, I'm not sure. So they should not have set a standard so low that all of them get certified that they are meeting sustainability standard, which include forced labor and decent. And later they have problem in exporting. So, and also the industry groups, what we want is all the industry group to work together, the regulators, because we have MOPP, we have the ministry, they should be looking forward that how can we meet the international sustainability, especially on issues, especially on forced labor and decent work. And retailer brands, maybe they are part of a board of a scheme. If they are there, or they should be there because they are the ones should be pushing, please focus on these areas and all that. So to close the gap actually in the standard, or you want to make sure that our audit standard addresses all the forced labor and decent issue, all this should be involved in setting the standard or whatever. Yeah, it should not be based on certain people or whatever. I'm not very sure how the standard was set. So these are the potential issue we can face. The most important actually, whenever you talk about forced labor and decent work, actually we are focusing on the estate, plantation, mills, the growers, especially in the mills, refineries, and all the supply chain. One of the things you find even the manufacturers, one of the things they do not know what is the requirement for forced labor and decent work because they are not laid out in the standard. Yeah. Then sometimes when the auditor comes, they give us finding. And the worst, so this is very important that in the standard, it should be stated out what is required. And some of the standards we have used, it's very difficult to implement it by these estate mills. It's very, some of it may be too simple. They don't say anything. Some standard may be too detailed, yeah, that they put a lot of unnecessary things. Apart from that, I think the focus should be on the directors, board of directors, CEO, MD, CFO, and all that. Their commitment is very important, and their knowledge on this forced labor and decent work is very, very important, because if they, in the organization, whether small or big or very public listed company, if they are telling the down level that this is the thing we need to do, directors, then everybody will do it. If they say we should be fishing, all be fishing. If they say, they talk about this, top management talk about golf, everybody will be talking about golf. This is my experience. But if the CEO, director, board, they're very well versed in this standard regarding sustainability, forced labor, and decent, they will make sure that everything is done. And unfortunately, sometimes I go to some of the estate mills and all that, they have been certified to certain standards, but when you go there, they don't comply, because the person in charge will say that we got audited after the 4 years, after that we can forget about it. And most of the time they focus on production output, yeah, because the bosses talk about production output, how much FFB is there, how much CPU, and they don't ask if it's the estate controller, they don't ask about safety, about forced labor, about all that. So that's the reason the focus should be on production in a sustainable manner. That means they also should be talking about, is there any safety? What about forced labor and all that? Another issue in most of the thing is that it's very difficult to get budget. Yeah. Once the budget is not there, they'll say we don't have budget. So if the auditor come and audit, or they have an issue around the world, then they will find some budget. But they do not want to be proactive. They are always reactive, So to do that, we need a good standard where the certification auditors can issue an NC. When issue NC, then they will have a budget. I always get a lot of training for social system, like RBA code of conduct, when the client got audited and they got 40 major NCs. Then they want me to solve it. It's very difficult. They don't want to be proactive. Yeah. And in others like RBA code of conduct, which is for the electrical industry, once there's a NC, so all your customers will know. So usually they don't have budget. So it's very important that standard is robust. It's stated everything what is required. It's not that we just want to get a standard. Another thing is sometimes forced labor and decent work is controlled by the corporate HR. So this also must be stated in the standard that they need to be audited, because sometimes they are not aware of what is forced labor, what is decent work. So we need to focus on this, and they may not know even the requirements of TIP. Yeah, operations sometimes have no control hiring of migrant workers. Yeah, they have no control because the corporate. Yeah, and also they focus more on other things like greenwashing, what they call it, greenwashing, or even whitewashing. Yeah, they are greenwashing. They are more interested in GRE reporting, sustainability report, integrated report, audit report, or whatever, rather than forced labor. So we have to shift the focus on this top management, accountants, CFO, and all these people, accountants especially. They will say this is not important. Yeah, so they need to be aware of this. And due diligence, usually they do not do any due diligence on labor agent that include forced labor. So now the government is going to, what do you call it, open up foreign migrant workers. They can come in. This is the time they need to have, organization need to have a very good contract with the labor agent, enforceable contract which addresses forced labor and decent work. This is the time. And try to get lawyers who are young, not the old lawyers which will give you all wrong advice. Coming back to the standard, maybe the standard, there's maybe a guidance, maybe it's a mixture of guidance, I don't know. Definition may be wrong, because look at some of the draft standard, they talk about shipbuilding, they talk about what they call it, tourism and all that. So it should be focused on sustainability, forced labor, and decent work. Requirement may be not clearly stated, so when the auditor want to issue a finding, it's very difficult. And they're addressing maybe some of the standard be addressing local laws rather than international law. Yeah. Scheme owner, maybe the board or the senior staff are not aware of all the international standard for forced labor, decent work. So anybody working in the scheme, right from the board to everybody, they need to know about the standard. Even if you are in charge of strategy, you need to know about the standards. It's not only about forced labor, decent, also about greenhouse, climate change, everything. You cannot be doing craft a strategy based on don't know what. Then another thing is who is developing the standard, about competency. Are they competent? Competency definition is some of the standards we write in Malaysia is normally wrong. We have to follow international. And one of the important is the knowledge of standard setting. Certification body may be the auditor competency, because they not be competent. They think they know everything, but they are not. This one, calibration auditors. This is also related to the standard. You have good standard, you don't need calibration, but if the standard is very vague, you need calibration, which this issue came out. I think Mr. Subramaniam was the one who brought up this issue last week. The CB may be focused on too much on revenue. Yeah. And accreditation body, maybe the assessors, are they about their competency? I'm not talking about their competency. It can be a potential issue. Yeah. And maybe standard may not be suitable for accreditation of the CB. Yeah. Also, labor agent, they do not unable to control foreign labor agent, not aware of forced labor, is not stated in the contract. And brands is very important. They are unable to influence that forced labor and other requirements are included. So what is forced labor decent? I follow ILO, the 8th convention. Yeah. So these are the fundamental principles of right to work. I think all of you went through this. They are the 8. I will not go through that. FOA, then they talk about organization collective bargaining, forced labor convention is very old. That means they're not talking like today, about 5 years ago, this 1930. Forced labor 1957, minimum age convention 73, and worst form of child labor. So another thing, please do not put rectify ILO convention. It's your customer requirement. When your customers say that they want you to have sustainable standard, you have to follow their requirements. So you cannot say rectify ILO convention. It had to be ILO convention. Yeah, that's very important. Because you are focusing on international market, not local market. So definition of forced labor, I think there's a discrimination here. I don't know if somebody can correct me whether these words are right, all work or service which extract for any person under a threat or will cause harm of any penalty and for which the said person has not offered himself voluntary. I don't know why himself only. What about herself? So I don't know whether they have changed it or not. This is also, I think most of us nowadays, especially if it's a public listed company, they talk of what Sustainable Development Goal, SG give these goals, as Sustainable SDG goals, which is number 8, decent work and economic growth. So we want to promote sustainable, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. So these are some of the targets: full employment, and modern slavery, and protect child labor. So for indicators of forced labor, this is based on the ILO special program. I think I just want to recap this. I think all of you went through this training. Abuse of vulnerability, deception, restriction of movement, isolation, physical and sexual violence, and all these things. I will not go through that. You can read it. Now, it's important for the growers, especially estate, plantation, mills, or refinery, biodiesel plant, and all that, to understand the requirements regarding this. Yeah. So it's also so that they can implement it, so that they can ask for budget, so they can tell their bosses. So the bosses, another thing, when the certification body auditors are auditing, they'll know what to audit. Yeah. And also, if it's so whenever there's a NC, the certification auditor will be able to say which part of it is not meeting the requirement. Yeah. So excessive overtime. This you cannot run away from this. So all this need to be stated in the standard. So we have to look in the existing standard of the standard which are coming. Have they addressed all these requirements? So these are very important. And to me, all these are criteria. Okay. Apart from that, we talk about decent work. I think here also I think there's some discrimination here. Decent work as productive work for women and men in condition of freedom, equality, security, and human dignity. They are focusing on women and men only. What about transgender? So discrimination. So what is it? It's about secure employment, so that in social standard, you cannot say the contract is 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. Why? Because they use 2 years because they do not want to pay the benefits. After 6 years, their benefits may be higher. So to avoid paying benefits, they break the contract. Legally, this is right, but in social system, this is not right. Another thing is about fair wages. Another one is safe working environment. We will go through that because I think in last week, they did show about safe working condition, but it was not clearly stated, because then the growers will not know what to do. Another thing is about social protection, insurance, and others. Social dialogue, yeah, with the employees, with the everything, we go, and labor rights and standards. These are the things we are talking about. Now, what is decent work? Increasing employment, ensuring decent work is essential in all aspects of sustainable development. So if organizations start talking about GRA reporting, and I think they should not focus on that. Rather, they have to focus, go to their mills, hands-on, and see, without telling the mills, refinery, they are coming there. And then they will understand that my bosses will come down, my MD, my CEO, without informing me. They'll make sure they comply with all the requirements. Have a suppress check. It's not an audit or what, just a check, make the operation aware that we are interested. I was working for a British multinational. When the CEO come from USA, even the top guy, chairman, the first place in the whole organization he goes to is the wastewater treatment plant, foreman area, where it's always not right. So if you are not right there, they say, I need not see the production. Okay, so the MD, CEO, whether of schemes, they should go down and see what is happening. Without, if it's their own area, they can go without informing the person, because if you inform, everything will be planned. Yeah. So another thing is quality employment, decent work condition will reduce inequality and poverty, empower people, especially women, young persons, and people who are most vulnerable, such as migrant workers and people with disability. So the palm oil industry in Malaysia need to create and promote jobs that provide decent earning, ensure safe working condition, provide social protection, safeguard worker rights. This all should be in the standard. So I already mentioned what ILO definition is. So work is considered decent when it pay a fair income, it guarantees secure form of employment and safe working condition, ensure equal opportunity and treatment, so about discrimination, about social protection for all the workers and their families, offer personal development, encourage social integration, and workers are free to express their concern, grievances and all that. So there should be something on that, and to organize themselves. Social fundamentals, when you have this system, all the standard setters, please, the social system focus on workers, not on employees. Workers, especially for social system. Because why? They are weak, vulnerable. They do not know their rights. They are unprotected. Yeah, that the agent or employer can exploit them. So that's the reason we have this, they say you're having forced labor. Why they're focusing? Because these people think is just because they are born in certain area, you want to bully them. I'm born in another family, just is by luck or by God or whatever will, you are born there, but then they are discriminated. So that's the reason we want to focus on the workers, not on employees. So you said accommodation for employees, then they start making manager houses, beautiful houses where they don't focus on the workers. So you must focus on the workers. Workers include temporary, migrant, student, contract, direct employees, and other type of workers. So definition of workers must be where it's not employees, should be workers. When you have reached certain stage in 5 years time, now we are going to set a standard this year. In 5 years, maybe you want to put employees. Yeah, the organization must uphold the human rights of workers and treat them with dignity and respect as understood by international community, because we are exporting. We are not talking about local market. Yeah, and organization must ensure that working conditions palm oil supply chain are safe, the workers are treated with respect and dignity, and the business operation are environmentally responsible and conducted ethically. That means you have to focus on force about labor, about safety, about environment, and about ethics and your management system. So organization need to go beyond legal compliance. So if you meet the legal requirement, doesn't mean you meet the social system requirement. So when you come out with this social system, look at international recognized standards. So especially those in scheme owners, they should know all the standards, whether it's SA 1000, ETI based code. There are so many. RBA Code of Conduct, ISO 9000, ISO 14001, ISO, all the standards they should know, especially in whether it's their directors or whether it's their CEOs or MD, and all the senior managers should know that. Organization, you cannot go against the local laws, any law. If there's a law, you must comply. So they only usually give a statement and then no need to state all the laws. So in case there's a different requirement between this social system standard you set and the local law, you must meet the strictest requirement that protect the worker or favor the worker. Like overtime, you say in our law, you say that you can do overtime 104 hours per month. But social system will say you only can do 48 hours. So the 48 hours apply because it is to protect the worker. So please remember that it's not about meeting law that you are sustainable. Okay, that was the older story 20 years ago. Now we are in 2021. We have to support our economy. We should not unknowingly sabotage our economy. Because unknowingly we don't include this. In future, maybe 1-2 years time, our international buyers will become more stricter. Yeah, so we have to have a competitive edge over our competitors in palm oil industry. So please do not lower the standards so low that everybody is sustainable. They meet all the social system requirement, but shocks me, you put a certificate, but we have ban here, ban there, and all that. So be careful of that. Why we did this sustainability standard, I already mentioned. Sustainability, especially forced labor and decent work in Malaysian palm oil, is questioned by EU, NGO, USA, even the consumer, not the brands. It's the consumers who are pushing it. Yeah? And palm oil has been banned in USA port. We have issued EU. We want to go to court. When you go to court, you show your standard. You say, what? This is a standard. You see, why are you addressing forced labor? We need to provide objective evidence that palm oil is produced in a sustainable manner. It's not subjective. Yeah, objective evidence will be that entire palm oil supply chain is certified to robust, credible, and reliable standards. Those standards need to address emerging, not what law or not about what 20 years ago issued sustainability. What is happening now? Should not be local palm oil industry perspective. The standard need to be drafted looking in consideration the international standard and convention, not rectified convention. Not only local law, including ISO Guide 82/84. Principal criteria address international concern and issue, not what local industry think. There's no need to create local definition. No need to take definition from the shipbuilding, from the tourism industry. In sustainability and ISO, we already have definition. Use that. We want to export to overseas market, not local market. So use international definition. Don't use local definition. Okay. Like Malaysian standards, then we will ensure that all the local actors in the supply chain are aware of the international sustainability requirement. They will be able to implement it. This is where what we want is continual improvement. 60 hours they cannot meet, it's okay. Then give an NC and then give few years to comply. Doesn't mean you have to comply when you come up with a standard. So a good MS standard will assist players in the palm oil, assist us in exporting palm oil to overseas, which will improve our economy because we'll get foreign exchange and all that. So don't unknowingly sabotage our economy by not putting a strict standard, but putting a standard so that all of us qualify. So basic principle of standard setting, I think Jabatan Standard can talk also about this, or Standard Malaysia. When you have a standard, you have to be robust, credible, reliable, sustainability management system, easily understood. Yeah, so that you have, there's no meaning, it should be easy to use in a system. It should be in a systematic manner. Not you write here something, there something, and then you make like a rojak and you think it's, so it should use step-by-step approach. It should be very to the point, need not have two meanings. Market relevance, so market relevance is foreign market. They are talking about that, and should be addressing all the sustainability issues, especially of forced labor and decent work. Technically sound and verifiable. That means when the auditor or the internal auditor is auditing or assessor is auditing the CB, it can be verified. Not when the auditor want to give any NC, the grower or the mill will say, hey, you cannot issue, there's not a requirement or whatever. So all components of the standard need to be structured to deliver quality sustainability outcome. So you have to set up a performance level, result, measurable progress of the scheme, all that. There should be risk-based thinking, and able to withstand the scrutiny of international researchers like our University of Nottingham, the NGOs, the interested party. Should be simple, very clear, translate. You will be able to translate in Iban language, Tanazan language, Mandarin, or whatever languages. So that we need to translate so that everybody understands. So don't be too emotional on that. Okay, and flexibility. So it should not be so tight that we prevent the organization to be competitive, because this standard only will tell you what you need to do, how to do, the organization decide. Now, what is a standard? A standard is a document established by consensus and approved by a recognized body that provide a common and repeated use of rules and guidelines and characteristics for activity or their result aimed at achievement of optimal degree order of given context. This is the definition. So we also have an accreditation standard. When you have a certification body, anybody will start operating the certification body. So it's very, very important that we need to have an accreditation standard. So the standards, accreditation body normally use this standard. And this standard is for providing audit and certification of management system. It's a requirement for bodies, that means certification body providing audit and certification of management system. So there should be a management system. If there's no management system, you cannot be using this standard. Yeah. Okay. So these are the contents. We need not go through the contents because this is for the certification body and accreditation body. I used to do a lot of training on that. So one of the things is that before I go further, I would like to know what was the poll results. Do you have the poll results? So if you say yes, if you're auditor, assessor, or even internal auditor, you are saying 50%, 56 say yes. I think later I'll go through, then you tell me again whether it's yes or no. Yeah. Okay, good. 56% say they have, yes, there's a stand. So they know what is forced labor and they can easily implement it. And the other say don't have. So is majority say you already have a standard. I think Malaysia shouldn't have any problem in that now, because most we know we have a standard. Now, as I mentioned, there's an accreditation standard which is for we need to have management system. So we need to have a management system for the what you call forced labor and decent work, and usually it's part of sustainability standards. So normally we call it sustainability management system. Yeah. So this, what is the meaning of management system? So you all can see whether you have this management system or not. So management system is defined as framework for processes, procedures used to ensure the organization can fulfill the tasks required to achieve a set of related sustainability objectives. So they provide a model for establishing, operating, maintaining, improving a sustainability management system, which include decent work and forced labor, and exclude the capability to align to the management expectation. This is the official definition. So normally we need to have a management system so that we can oversee or have an oversight of all the requirements in a sustainability standard. So one of the sustainability standard requirement will be human rights and employment that addresses forced labor and decent work. The other one will be safety of workplace. The other one will be social stakeholder engagement, environment and climate change. So you need to have a management system. So the question is, do the standards we have in Malaysia, they have a management system? So because I use the word SMS, sustainability management system, because usually labor, forced labor and decent work is formed and falls under this. So sustainability, I think all of you talk about assistant encompassing environmental, and I'll not talk about this management and management system. So usually sustainability system can include establish policy, objectives, processes to achieve sustainable objectives through planning, internal audit, and sustainability improvement. So key characteristic is about accountability. These are the core. Of course, there must be objectives. So accountability, is there a management system in the standard? Do they have outlined the roles, responsibility of interested party? Maybe the senior most manager, we call them top management. Can the process be repeated? Are they used to design one time or all time? What about documentation? Because I always find that most of the estate plantation, they have documentation. They put in a very long documentation. I mean, there's a lot of documentation and based on principle and criteria, which I think is not the right thing to do. There are other ways of doing it. So, but because our standards are from the forest industry. In fact, the guys who created the forest standard were from my previous company. Yeah. So that's why we see that whatever is in the forest, it came into this palm oil supply chain. And actually, palm oil is a planted crop. It's not a forest, So the requirements should be different and all that. Later we can discuss that. So about the resources, so that you need resources to align with organization objectives, performance measurements and review. Is it included? How to assess performance based on leadership expectation? Competency is very important. Yeah, and about culture change. I will not go there. So this is okay. So what is an audit? Okay, so what is an audit? It's a systematic, that means step by step. It's an independent, that means it has to be audited by independent people. That means it should be impartial. If I'm auditing, I cannot audit my own work. And also a documented process, but you need to keep document. And please note, it's a process. I think most of you are aware of the definition of process. So it's not a silo type of thing, then my job is only this, I stay there. Huh? What we want to do is when we ever do, whether it's internal audit, whether it's the certification body audit, or we want to do, assessors want to audit for the accreditation of CB, we are trying to obtain objective evidence. Huh? Objective evidence. We want to, it must be objective, cannot be subjective. In the standard, if don't have the requirement, don't have the what is needed, you cannot give an NC. Must be objective evidence. You have evidence against the what is stated in the standard. Then you evaluate objectively, not subjective. Objective means there must be something really solid proof, not objective where I think this is the way you should be doing. I think you are burning. Burning is not allowed. Is it stated in the standard? Yeah. To determine the extent which audit criteria are met. So we want to determine, has the audit criteria been fulfilled or not? So what's the audit criteria? It can be a standard, it can be anything. So it can be processes, the organization, what they have. So this is taken from guideline for auditing management system. So here also they focus on management system. So if you don't have management system, maybe you need not use this. Now, what's the meaning of audit criteria? Audit criteria is set of requirement used as a reference against which objective evidence is compared. So I said, this one, I have the audit criteria. So the audit criteria must have the requirement. If no requirement, you cannot issue any NC. Yeah? What is objective evidence? Is data supporting existent or verify or something. So objective evidence, you can see something which is happening, you can measure. There are so many ways of doing it, get objective evidence. Okay, objective evidence for the purpose of audit consists of records. Yeah, the statement of facts, somebody says something, you can see something, or other information which is relevant to the audit criteria, and very important, verifiable. If I give a NC based on the objective evidence, when I give another auditor, another person should be able to verify it. Yeah, there's something there. So the audit evidence I mentioned earlier is record, statement of fact, or information relevant to audit criteria. Audit finding is when you evaluate you objectively against the audit criteria. That's the result. The result of evaluation of collected audit evidence against audit criteria. Now, if you have a C, usually it's conformity, fulfillment of a requirement. Audit finding can be a fulfillment of requirement or non-fulfillment of requirement and C. Please remember, we don't say compliance. Okay, compliance is for legal. When you don't meet legal requirement, we said you don't comply with legal requirement. But you don't comply with what do you call it, management system, sustainability management system requirement, is called conformity, non-conformity, NC. Yeah, so please remember that. And in the accreditation guide, ISO IEC 17021 part 1, they did classify what is major NC, what is minor NC. That means the scheme owner or whoever it is cannot say which is an NC, which is major, which is minor. It's the responsibility for the auditor, lead auditor, auditor or certification body to issue major NC and minor. If you classify, that means something wrong. That means you're not following the accreditation standard. You cannot accredit the certification body. Yeah? So this is very important. The major NC classification should be given by the auditors who are auditing. Yeah, internal auditor need not give major, minor, because I'm doing internal audit. I just want to see you comply or not. Only thing when I must close it. So I look in the priority for internal audit, but for certification audit, we look into major and minor. And what is major? Non-conformity that affect the capability of management system to achieve intended results. So this must be objective evidence. So in the standard must state what is required, they are not doing it. Then only you can give major NC. If not, no major NC. You cannot assume what the standards say, just like the legal system. What the law say, the judge interpret. So what was the background? They don't look into the background. So the standard must be very, very clear. Non-conformity can be classified major, like there's significant doubt the effective process control is in place or the product or services will meet the specific requirement. So significant doubt, but it must be objective doubt, not subjective. Sometimes you have a lot minor NC is non-conformity does not affect the capability of management system to achieve the intended results. So it's very minor. I have what 1,000 foreign migrant worker, 2 workers. I find this. It's depending on the auditor whether you want to classify this minor or major. Or let's say forced labor, the estate or the mill do not let the workers go back home after their work is finished. Is it a major or minor? Because then is it stated in the standard? If not stated in the standard, you cannot give NC. You cannot say it's forced labor. So it must be stated. So especially those who said all the standard meet the requirement, please revisit your poll. So when the auditor, we are writing a non-conformity, the following need to be stated. We need to state whether it's an internal auditor, certification auditor, accreditation body assessor. They need to write a non-conformity. They need to state the following. What is the requirement? If there's no requirement, you cannot issue NC. Then the auditor can make noise. Why you issue? Yeah. So a child must be in the standard. Okay. Now, another thing, you need to describe the non-conformity in a clear manner. Sometimes you find that non-conformity is written, nobody can understand. And also you need to provide objective evidence. You cannot just state the requirement or just describe the non-conformity. Yeah. So you need to give objective evidence. So in the standard, don't have the word shall, you can ignore it. You cannot give NC. I think Standard Malaysia, some representative will be here. They also will tell you that if there's no shall in the standard, we cannot issue NC. Okay. Why we cannot issue NC is these are the verbal forms used in standards. Please follow ISO and other standards. Don't follow your own standards and all that. So whenever we use in standard, there are 4 verbs we can use. One is shall, indicate requirement. It's like a legal term. You should do this. You not should. Should is a recommendation. Shall do this. That means if they say you shall do this, you are not doing it. Can be major NC or minor NC. If you don't have this word, the standard is not auditable. Please remember that. If the standard do not have a word shall, it's not an auditable standard. Okay. If they have should, may, and can. If should is only recommendation. And in case I don't want to do, you can say, I only say should what? It's only a recommendation what? Why you want me to do it? You understand? So should is not auditable. And may is only giving you permission. You may do this, may do that. Also is not auditable because I don't want to do, you give me permission, I don't want your permission. Okay. Can, possibility or capability. So in standard, please remember when you set a standard, these are the basic verbs you need to use. If it's a standard that you want to be auditable, must have shall. You cannot say XYB plantation shall issue you cannot use the word shall in the procedures. Okay, this is only in the standard. Shall is in the future. Yeah, so you cannot use the word shall. If I'm a mill, I'm an oil mill, I say our oil mill shall have a management review. You cannot say that. You have to say the oil mill will have a management review every month. You cannot say the oil mill shall have review every month. So how the grower and mills or the user of standard, you have to convert this shall into what you are doing. You cannot use the word shall. Okay, so shall is very important. Kalau tada shall, it's not an auditable standard. It's a standard, but it's not auditable. A standard which provide guidance do not contain requirements. So or may contain recommendations. So when it's guidance, they put should, may, and can. Yeah, recommendation also will put should and may. Yeah, so if you say I want to do risk management of labor risk management, I want to do. So when you do labor risk management, they say use ISO standard, which is the standard ISO 31000, year 2018, because we are talking about risk-based management system. So when you use the standard, there is only should. That means it's not accreditable. No, you cannot be certified. Okay, another thing I forgot to tell. When there's shall, then only you can be certifiable. Then you can issue a certificate. Use this term, any standard used in these three terms will not be able to be certified. So if you have a certification scheme, all have this word should, may, can, that means it's not certifiable standard. Okay. Usually if you have information, annex, and normative reference, please remember that information is only for information. They give additional information to make you understand, because there's one of the I attended one of the working group for supply chain. They don't know the difference between informative and normative. I was only for 1 hour explain to them, still they don't want to come back and ask what is it. Yeah. When you issue the standard, when people read the standard, if your standard is so big, they would say, how do they know about sustainable? They'll put a question mark. Yeah? Don't think it's a thing that we just get the standard done. So it can be normative, can be informative. So references also can be normative or whatever. So there can be normative references or informative references. Okay. Now about this graph here, it provides all the information. So when you put this, please do not put only local laws. Try to avoid local law. You need not state local law. One state can state, but try to put international, all the ISO standard. And also we have this certain code of conduct for labor, ethics, put all that. Yeah. SA 8000, look into that. What is the requirement? Don't put all the Malaysian laws. Okay, this is the best way, auditable standard. How you recognize whether the standard is auditable or certifiable? It is to see whether it contains the word requirement, shall, or not. If it doesn't contain the word requirement, it's not auditable. Yeah, that means tablet audit lah. Okay, so this is very, very important because a lot of us don't know about that. We think as long as standard is auditable, we can get CJ. So the accreditation bodies, I think here we have two, maybe we have from the one ASI and maybe Standard Malaysia, I'm not sure. They will tell you this, that in order to standard to be auditable or to have to get certificate, you need to have requirements. That means shall must be there. Yeah. So normally the title of the standard will say so, when you have a title like this title, the requirement will be stated here. So you'll be stated environmental management system requirement with guidance for use. For ISO 45000 occupational health and safety management system, requirements must be there. So the requirement part is auditable. The guidance is not auditable. They only give you guidance, but you cannot combine together in the standard, because some of the standard I see they combine together. Guidance should be in the annex. Don't put in the standard by itself, in the main part of the standard. Put as an annex to the standard as informative, what do you call it? Annex. Okay, so same thing like sustainability. Let's say we are sustainable palm oil standard, because I think one of our ministers said that we want to make sure we go for international, our standard we make international standard. So make sure that you have this word sustainable palm oil, sustainability management system for palm oil plantation and organized smallholders. Then you have to say requirement based on principle and criteria. This is the right way of putting a title. Must have the word requirements. Yeah. If you don't, so this is a sustainability palm oil 1, 2, 3 coming out next year. So this must be the thing. Also, we have another standard. Yeah. I'll talk about these standards, how your standard should look like, so that the growers will know what they need to, what are the requirements, what they need to do. And the auditors will be able to certify based on the requirements. Yeah. Issue NC or make sure they comply with all the requirements. It should be very clear. Then you may have sustainability management system and traceability for biodiesel plants requirements, or you may have traceability and chain of custody or certified palm oil requirements for whatever. Or you want to have requirement for renewable energy, not biomass. This all standard for biomass. Don't create a standard for biomass. We already have a standard on biomass. And also sustainability management system for palm oil certification scheme requirements. So use the ISO, IEC 17,021 part 1, yeah, year 2015, and put for what is the additional requirement for oil palm oil certification. So there's a lot of things there also to do, because they either have a risk assessment, which my client said they have to do risk assessment. I said, this is not the risk assessment the certification body should be asking. They asked, do you have a policy? Definitely you don't have a policy, because if you don't have system in place. They should be asking, do you have migrant workers from, that's the risk we are looking at. Do you have a migrant worker from which country? How many workers you have? How many contract workers? That's the risk you have to look into when we are doing certification body is going to issue a quotation for certification. There are some standards which will provide guidance, and they are not verifiable. It's not readily verifiable because they use the word should, may, or whatever. So some of the standard which is not verifiable is ISO 26000:2010. It's a guidance document. You cannot get a certificate because there's no shell. It's not auditable. Okay. Also, there's another standard. I think we'll have a break at 10:30. ISO 14004, Environmental Management System, General Guidelines for Implementation. Okay. So that also you cannot, not auditable. Or there's another one on 4500, Occupational Health and Safety Guidance for Performance. So in case of sustainable palm oil, I would say there's SPO, whatever you can say, sustainability management system. Then instead of requirement, you say guidance for implementing this standard or whatever for implementation. So that's what you need. Give guidance to your growers, whether it's estate plantation, give guidance to your mill, refineries, and others. How you want to implement the system. First thing, the thing should be systematically implementable. Yeah, you cannot be just, I think I looked through something you went through. Okay, you cannot be just saying like that, like principal transparency is not a principle. It should be a criteria, part of this corporate governance. Governance for this also comply law, yes, but certain things must be here. There must be more. There's nothing but performance and all that. It should be more like this. Principle 1, accountability for sustainability should be top level commitment, sustainability policy, and also about organization role responsibility, ensure economic viability, transparency, ethical policy, and then managing what you call it, documented information. Then you have respect for law, and all this will be there. Stakeholder engagements will be separate. I'm trying to point principle number 4 here. Human rights and employment conditions should be separate by itself, a principle, and there should be a criteria which is stated in ILO. Don't try to put it. And also there should be good agriculture practice. Health and safety should be a separate by itself. Environmental management system by itself. Performance evaluation, including monitoring, because they are monitoring. About internal audit, about management review should be detailed. And about improvement. ISO MSPO standards are good because they talk about new technology information, the how to raise NC and about continual improvement. Is there in that sense good? So, but these are, to be frank, you need to amend all this. Sorry for saying that. Okay. Now, we already have discussed about what is the auditable standard, certifiable standard. Later, after we have a tea break at 10:30 until 10:45. Yeah, it's better because after 1 hour, you may get tired. Maybe we can, I don't know whether you can revisit the poll and see whether you have this thing. When forced labor, is it only forced labor or there's a detailed stating? Or maybe we go through one of the standard, how it should be, and then I'll go more detail on the standard. So I think we go for a break first for 15 minutes. I think we are adults, we need a break. Yeah. And we'll come back after 10:45, and then I'll continue. Is it okay with all of you? Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go for a break. We'll be back at 10:45. I want all of you to rest, walk around, do a bit of exercise. Can I start or how is it? My watch says 10:45. Can we start? 11:45. Yeah, 10:45. Can I start now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. There's a lot in chat box, which I think I'll talk later. Yeah, we'll talk about the chat box. There's a lot of questions and all that. We'll discuss later. Now I'll focus back on the standard. So as I mentioned, to be auditable standard for forced labor, there may be gaps, may not be gaps. And my advice is, we have looked into it. In order for the standard to be auditable and certifiable, that means you get a certificate, whether it's for sustainability palm oil or forced labor or season work. It must have the word shall. Yeah, it must have the word shall. And the requirement, as we know, the requirement which is say for labor, decent work is this. All this must be as a indicate, either as a criteria or indicator to me. This forced labor should be a criteria. This should be all the indicators there. Some of it will be addressed somewhere, but all this must be in the standard. And we'll look into it, how to address in a standard. So I'll show you a standard which is very old, quite old standard, 2019, how it should look like, so that you have an understanding that how the standard should look like. Okay, let's say I look at this standard. This is a standard, let's say, and usually in the standard we have to put sustainable palm oil sustainability management system for all palm plantation organized, requirements based on. A title is very important. It will state what is inside, because you can see some of the draft standards and all that, the titles may not be right. So this is just a warning. It was written 2019. So in this standard, where can we address it? Yeah, where can we address it? We can address it in human rights and employment, let's say. Yeah, so I'll go through this because it's about human rights, employment condition, about human rights and employment policy criteria. Criteria freely chosen employment, we'll go detail. Criteria for provision of child labor. Criteria is reasonable working hours. Fair, then the other one is fair, decent wage, employment benefit, prevention of harassment and violence at workplace, prevention of discrimination, freedom of association, about competency and training of workers. I'm not interested in employees, and encouragement for worker feedback and participation. This is regarding the employment related, and also we have to have something on. Wait, I see whether I have or not. Safety. So safety should be more detailed so that the auditor can give findings. So usually in safety, we have good agriculture practice. Yeah, about pest, what we call it, product, about PPE and all that, about that should be more detailed, so that the workers are not exposed to any pesticide, any chemical. So I go directly. Of course, if you want to go through the standard, I will not go through the standard because here we are not talking. It should be about the aim of the standard, theory of change, and very important in the standard is for how are we contributing to sustainable development goals, especially for forced labor. Then we use plan, do, check, act, and also risk-based thinking concept about the document and about sustainability. This is the scope. I will not go through that. References should be related, term definition. In the term and definition, one of the most important thing is to state what is a child. Yeah, normally in a child we'll say is united definition, not local law. Not there's one law. The age in Malaysia is the age of child is 18. That's not the right one. That is for sexual offenses against children. So don't use the wrong one. Yeah. Okay. What is contractor and decent work? We need to define what is decent work and all that. Yeah. Decent work. What is so? what is consumer and all that. I'll not go through that. We go straight to even forced labor is here. What is forced labor? Now we go to policy or not required. Yeah, ethic behavior not required. I'm just focusing on forced labor. Grievances. Okay. I think it's here. Yeah. This is the one. This is for housing. Housing we can talk later because there's a requirement for part of the. Yeah, this is decent work. Yeah, this is the one we are talking about. We need to be a principle where I say human rights and employment condition. When we say human rights and employment, we need to have a policy or policies regard to human rights, employment, and fair labor practice. So here you need to have a commitment to provide decent work, uphold human rights of workers, treat them with respect and dignity. That should be stated. Prohibition of use all kind of forced labor, compulsory labor, prohibition of elimination all kind of discrimination, but in the policy zero tolerance to harsh or inhuman treatment or sexual harassment, commitment fulfill legal requirement which is applied for this employment, commitment for continual improvement of human rights and working condition. Please remember, if I'm auditing, I'll check the policy. I need to know what should be in the policy. I cannot be just saying have a policy for employment or human rights. You must say in the policy that there must be commitment of this, the prohibition of this and all that. In the policy, must be stated. You cannot simply say just a few words. And then this policy should be available as documented information, communicate in a language that can be understood by workers or person working under organization control, be available, communicate to relevant stakeholder, and be relevant. So you don't copy and paste. So if you talk about forced labor, because we are talking about forced labor, this is a bit old, 2019. Now it's 2021. Prohibition on use of for all forms of forced labor, compulsory labor, including bonded and trafficked. So this must be very, very clearly stated that when you say organization, there's a definition of organization. It's not from tourism standard, it's from sustainability standard. So I do not use the word estate, plantation, or what. I use the word organization, I define it. So it should be stated, the organization shall not engage in the use of force, compulsory, all this labor shall not be used, including transporting and all these things. All work must be voluntary. So in case they are forcing workers to work, it's not voluntary, you can give a non-conformity based on this requirement, because actually it should be shall, not must. I need to change this, it's the old one. So it should be all work shall be voluntary and workers shall be free to leave their work anytime after working hours, or even terminate their employment. If a local worker want to terminate, they give due notice to the employer. Because they are worker, you follow Employment Act. So if you hire a worker from Bangladesh, Nepal, or Indonesia, they can just terminate their work. Yeah, and by giving due notice. Workers shall not be required to slender government issue passport. So whenever the estate or plantation holding a passport, you can give NC based on this. Then there should be a written employment contract with workers containing information about employment condition, wages, and all that. There should the management shall keep records listing all the employees and all that, including seasonal workers, subcontractor workers on premises. Yeah, what you need, because this is by law, you need all that. All workers shall be provided with fair contracts signed by both, and must be available. In case of migrant workers, they shall be informed before employment and leaving their home country the key employment condition in writing in their native language. So any expenses incurred in getting the job or hiring the foreign workers, including expenses traveling from and returning to country, will be borne by the. No substitution or change is allowed in terms of contract. Don't talk about triangulation contract. Yeah, upon arrival and receiving country, unless those changes are made to meet the local law and provide equal or better terms. If the contract is worse than Employment Act applies. Then workers need not pay any recruitment or employment related fees or deposit or incurred debt and all that. So all of it is stated very clearly. A lot of organizations will not be able to comply, but at least the auditor can give an NC They can give them a time frame that you close this non-conformity within this period. Now they don't know that you need to do all these things. Yeah. And in case of labor agent, the labor agent is used in an organization. Due diligence shall be conducted at planned intervals. You need to, if you have labor agent and contractor, you have to do and due diligence on these people. Are they doing right thing? Is there any forced labor bounded? You need to check their contract. So you need to verify whether wages are paid on time or whatever. Then child labor should be like this. No child below the age of 15 shall be employed or exploited. Not no child and young worker. Young worker who are above 15 but below 18 shall not be exposed to hazardous working condition, overtime or work doing. So if I see this, I can give finding. And a lot of you will say some of the estate, they have workers, young workers who want to work and help their parents, then there also, they shall only work outside school hours. And how much they can work. So there must be, in case a child is found on site, there must be a documented procedure how you handle it, although you may not have. Working hours, yeah. So all workers shall be provided at least one rest day, 24 hours in 7 working days. So that is a by law. All overtime shall be voluntary, and workers have right not to do overtime or refuse overtime. And so fair wages, decent wages. So about wages, shall pay wages for normal working hours under normal operating condition, not including overtime based on the legal wage. I didn't put decent wage or what is legal wage, let's say. Wage paid on performance rated basis, piece rate shall not be less than the legal minimum. Yeah. So they should not be using piece rate to avoid overtime. So when the auditor give findings, they can easily know, and even the organization, the estate, the growers will know what is required. Yeah. So you have to be more detailed. Organization shall pay overtime at the premium rate or required by Employment Act or relevant. Sorry, there's a wrong spelling there. You only can deduct salary or so deduction are calculated and following documented procedure clearly communicated to the workers and allowed by law. And when there's deduction, they should not be making less, a bit grammar error. Deduction from wages disciplinary measure or for quality related problem is not permitted. This is very important because if there's quality problem, is the supervisor or the management problem. Why never train them? Our organization shall not force workers to buy provision from their own business. So organization verify monthly the payment or recall contractor pay slip to the workers or whatever. Even the agent and the organization shall provide all employment benefits such as annual leave, medical leave. This is actually, when we are auditing, we should be looking at this, Yeah, that's about sexual harassment and whatever is this violence at workplace. Yeah, about disciplinary procedures, how it should be. Yeah, workers shall be provided clear grievances procedures. They should know what is disciplinary procedures, should be communicated to the workers, to the mandor, to the managers, supervisors. We need to keep the records. And then about discrimination and gender equity. Yeah, about you should not discriminate in the workplace when you hire people, when you pay people, do overtime, access to training, promote, terminate or retire people based on their race, what race, what nationality they are. That means if local worker is doing the same work as a foreign workers, same experience, you must give the same work. Based on their religion or disability, based on their gender, sexual orientation, you cannot escape from all this. You cannot say in Malaysia, we don't. Are you focusing on Malaysia or international market? So I hope the Ministry of Primary Industry, the strategic planners are here. They understand that what is the global needs. We should focus on the global needs, not on the local market. Unless you want local market, then you can say that I don't want this, I don't believe in, I think physical appearance is very important. And we need only males to do this. Yeah, all that. So even age you can do, or any other characteristic. And workers or potential workers shall not be subjected to any pregnancy testing or medical tests that can be used in discriminatory manner. Here we have a problem is because in case a foreign worker can come and work, they need to do pregnancy tests. And that is allowed. That is allowed because if not, you will not get the work permit. So workers and females must have the same work for the equal work of equal value and evaluation. So about no behavior is allowed. Workers shall not be allowed to perform. The workers shall be allowed to perform their religious obligation. If they are supposed to do prayer at what time, they should be allowed to pray. Then this is about collective bargaining. Okay. So it's very clear. The organization will know they want to do. And please, is the competency which is very important. Training and all these things. And also about encouraging the workers to give feedback. That's very important. So the growers will know what to do. I know they will have gaps, but most of my clients which I did jobs, consultancy and training, whether they are 200 hectares, whether they are 800 hectares, 1,000 or 2,000 or more, they will comply to this because when I do training, I focus on this. Yeah, and also about houses. That is for workers. You need to look into. So you cannot use a simple term. Yeah, housing. Must provide accommodation which is habitable, decent, and all the amenities must shall comply with whatever is a law requirement. Then it's very important, need to provide separate accommodation for workers of opposite gender for those not staying with their partners. Take preventive measure to ensure worker safety well-being, to take fire safety, because when you give a finding that there's no fire extinguisher in the accommodation at their workers' quarters, you cannot give. Then you need to quote 6.612B because it's a word shall. Then they assure that electrical wiring comply with the safety requirement. Workers and dependents receive necessary medical assistance. All quarters accommodation shall be approved from local or regulatory auditory before they occupy. All this is required. And in case they have child on site who are below, children below 18 and are staying in the accommodation, at least should be kept up to date, their list. So all this, and organization shall provide access to education for any child more than 5 years, but less than 18 and staying in the estate at no cost. So in fact, most of my clients are already doing that. I don't know why I cannot write in the standard. Yeah. And this is very important. The residents in the accommodation cannot hunt, keep, or rear, threaten, endanger RTT animals or protected animals, but residents can rear domestic animals for their own consumption. About inhuman treatment of animals, to burn any waste they cannot do, rubbish and material. Cannot use chemical containers, so they know cannot use. If not, I have to give finding you having chemical container where to give. They are burning. Cannot keep pesticide spraying equipment or pesticide at the quarters. Yeah, so it should be employees, including workers, shall be provided access to clean toilets, potable water, drinking water, and food on all these things. There should be first aid facilities. If not, I cannot give findings if they don't have first aid in their hostels. So areas surrounding housing shall be kept clear undergrowth. Perimeter drain around this, you must check. All the rubbish must be collected daily and disposed. It says. So you always go and audit, what do you call it, landfill. So there should be all these things there. And all toilet, bathrooms should be kept clean and all that in working condition. So this is a requirement that all building all should have inspection every week is required by the law. So the estate or meal and all that, they should be, if they are providing accommodation to workers or they have nurseries, community hall, they should be inspected by a designated person. This is a law. And in case there's remedial action, should be immediate. Organization shall not impose any payment of rent in respect to housing. And so about clean and safety food, in case there's canteen or shop, workers should not be forced to buy products and from canteen. There should be expired. This is what the auditors are looking for. You want to give findings, you can't give because they don't have that. Yeah, expiry date and prices of medicine shall be displayed. Personal handling this that. Workers shall access to clean food storage and all that. All of workers. Okay, that one different. So you have to mention that. And I would like to go very fast on safety. Yeah, on safety, I think here. You need to be more detailed, not just put. I think most of the organization already doing this, all the estates and all that. If they don't do, I don't think they should have given MSPO related certificate or RSPO. Has that, you should be more detailed, establish, maintain, procedure, identify all potential conduct. It should be all this written there. PPE should be given free of charge, even they spoil it, you should give free. You cannot scold any worker. Should be recorded. So about storage of chemical, it all should be there. You know, how you store the chemical and other matter shall be identified. Safety data sheet should be available, which most of the estates are doing it. This should be in the standard so that when we go to the international world, to a court internationally, we can show them we are already doing all these things. PHIR is a requirement, all are doing it. I should put it there. Chemical research shall be prepared for this research should be updated. You say it's already in the law, your customer, your traders or the international community doesn't know what you're doing. So put in the standard. Yeah. All chemicals, including temperature, shall be properly labeled with appropriate danger signs. Medical surveillance, we're already doing it. What? Safe practice, all that is already done. So this is for the workers. But first aid kit shall be available at permanent site and field operation. First aider should be present in field, and all these things about illness, occupation heal should be more detailed. Sorry, I have to go fast because accident, emergency response, health and safety training. Okay, and of course these are other not related to forced labor and safe working condition or decent work. So I'll not talk about that. So this should be more clearly stated, the standard. Let's say about climate change also should be more detailed. Yeah, not just give one statement, then you can issue findings. So I think this doesn't come under forced labor, and good agriculture practice is very important because there's also about application mission, because the workers are using all these things. All this must be kept. Fertilizer, about just a minute. Use of pesticide. Yeah, this is very important because we have to protect the workers are the one who are spraying the pesticide or using the pesticide. So it's important to put all these things about pesticide control. And advice on pesticide usage and all that must be there. Then all records available, there's maybe not part of it. One of the things that need to be stated, which we are already doing, most of my customers are doing, safety and training instruction. Person spraying pesticide shall be trained on safe and proper use of pesticide. The training shall be conducted before a worker starts spraying. That's very important. Pregnant or nursing mother shall not be allowed to spray or prepare pesticide. The organization shall not terminate or suspend employment of sub-pregnant or nursing mother, but shall provide alternative work. In case there's a few grammar errors. In case of application field, it shall be marked with warning sign that this area is under spray. Do not. So you need to have re-entry times and all that. Food and drinks are not allowed in the vicinity of the area being sprayed. So the workers are working there, they cannot bring their food and drinks. Should be stated because it's found. Let's say I find and give the CB or internal auditor finds something, at least you can say, based on this requirement, this is not allowed. Currently, we don't have. First aid box, SDI, safety data sheet of chemical use, clean water for emergency should be available. Pesticide shall not be sprayed near, this is not about labor. Potable drinking water should be available for the worker. So all this, look at the wind, so PPE is here. So all these items should be there. This is for worker safety. Okay. So, and another thing is, we always talk about continuous improvement, we know we will not meet the requirement when you talk about, one of the things is about management review. Oh yeah, management review is here. It was very important because at a planned interval, there should be a internal audit. It should be more detailed because we are labor, forced labor and decent worker standard. You must always say what is required in the audit. Auditor shall be competent, you need to do audit. Then management review should be related to, because the top management should review, So this should be related like audit, inspection result, trend in accident, non-conformity. Don't write about issues, Issues is ISO 9000 standards and all that. If you put issues, they will not be able to understand. So about trends in GSC, I mean, so about complaint, grievances, any dispute, compliance to legal requirement, worker and stakeholder, communication stakeholder, suitability of the policy, about the objective training program. So you should also focus on the workers, the management review. And by right, management review should be done every month, not every year. I don't know, it's a Malaysian style. Maybe I will not discuss everything, but I will discuss about the crop output, how many, what do you call it, in my meeting about crop output, how much ton of FFB, CPO, or whatever you have. But I also in a meeting, I have to discuss about safety, about all these things. It should not be left to once a year. Once a year is too late. Yeah, it should be every month actually. Even audit should be more regular. In case audit, because we want to talk about labor related, forced labor and decent work, you can, internal auditor cannot be auditing after 1 year. By right, internal audit should be broken up and more regular audits, more detailed than a certification audit, because the certification auditor depends on the internal auditor audits. Yeah, if they can do a very good audit more regularly, I will trust the internal audit. As an external auditor, I'll be satisfied they are doing the right job. It's not that when I'm going to have a certification audit for my sustainability standard, whatever standard you call it, then the sustainability team from the headquarters will come, start doing internal audit, start doing training, start telling everything and all that. So when the certification auditor come, everything, no NC, very good, all of them clap, management review done, everything done. So when the auditor leave, go back to square one. So it's very important that all this must be built into the system. It should not be standalone system. And this should be stated in the standard. Yeah, it should be stated in the standard. So very important is leadership. Yeah, leadership is very important. So there should be something on leadership. If not, forced labor, decent worker. So it's very important about organization governance, about is a principle is organization governance for sustainability. And this is what. Then your criteria, commitment, accountability for sustainable production. Leadership commitment is very important. And they must have responsible accounting, ensure all the process to operate in sustainable manner. According to SPO, principle and criteria, ensure policy available, compatible with the strategic direction. Yeah. So instead of doing GRI reporting, publishing very nice sustainability, they need to go back. Yeah. So they have to make sure that all these things, and the sustainability policy should be very, very clearly stated. Role and responsibility must be there. Always this is meeting. So there must be role and responsibility for good agriculture policy, legal compliance, somebody in charge of occupation. Some of them may do the job together, if not small estate. In Chinese, we say one leg kick or whatever. Environmental management, who, stakeholder engagement, grievances, traceability, and all that. So this is in case you have organized smallholders. You can please try not to make 4 or 5. There's some developing country in Africa. They make so many standards. One for this group, one. In the end, your credibility goes off because it shows that you just want everybody to be certified to sustainability. So please have one standard for such. Smallholders may not be included. Apart from smallholders, include everything. And there are a lot of easy ways of complying. Certification body auditors should not focus more on records. They should go and see the processes, what is happening. Yeah. Usually, whenever I do, when I go and visit some estate, big brands, most of them don't understand about. They will say that forced labor or even decent work is the responsibility of my head office. The sustainability thing. Diorang kacau aja saya selalu. They will say that. So please train all your estate manager, even if you're in big group, before publishing GRI, and make sure your mail don't pollute the environment. Go and check. So my advice to, if you have big organization, the CEO, the directors, pay surprise visit so that people are, they will make, in olden days, we have management by walk around. Yeah. Don't tell them you're coming, just have a visit. Then they say, my bosses can come anytime. Then people, the leadership is there. So that's the reason very important is leadership. If the leadership is not interested, you can write any standards, no point. They'll do greenwashing, they even will do whitewashing. I think all of you know about that. Okay, so this is about, if I said, and one of the thing about certain standard is, this is only about, meal should have a different standard altogether. Yeah, you cannot mix the standard. Yeah, the meal should have a different standard. I have to stop sharing. I'll come back again. I have to put a meal one. Oh. Just a minute, I'm trying to look at the male one. So the male should have a different standard. Can you see the standard on all of you or cannot? Can somebody give me?
Can't see.
No.
Please share screen
I'm
again.
lost. Hey, what happened to me? Here. I thought I'm lost. Okay, I'll show you the mill standard. The mill operation are totally different. Yeah. Palm oil and this one for refinery is totally different. Can you hear me? Can you see the standard?
Yes, we can hear you and we
So
can see you.
if in case of labor, forced labor and this one, you need to have a different sustainable management system for palm oil mill, and it cannot be part of the what do you call it, estate and plantation. So the certification for estate should be different, mill is different because the requirements are totally different. So in mill also you'll have this decent forced labor and all that. Yeah, so you have all this forced labor and all that, comply with law, complaints and all this stuff, and also about human rights. Yeah, because why? Their chemicals and all their safety is a bit different. The environment maybe, and also one of the things is good manufacturing practice should be there. Yeah, and also monitoring of performance, continuous improvement. I will not go through this. So you need to have a separate standard for that. And also I forgot to show just now the biograph. Whenever you have this, you need to have all this, to show that you are looking into all your, I can't pronounce the word, sorry. For this, all this, you cannot run away from this international carbon certification, maybe all the standards, even we have water standards should be included. So people can get more information for risk management, responsible alliance, what they have, United Nations. Yeah, don't put law and regulation, because law and regulation, they already have to comply, no need to put here. Yeah, so please do not show in the standard that you do not know about sustainability and about the standards. Don't show our weakness. So even there's a standard on water footprint, there's a new standard on water reduction and all that. So put that. And I like this standard, Malaysian standard. It's a good standard actually. MS 1784 is a very good standard. Need to be amended. It's something like that should be there. So I'll stop here. No, I go back to the presentation again. So we need to address all this as a criteria, not as an indicator, as one lump sum. Yeah. Okay. And then I need your question again. Now going back, I've told you what is the auditable standard. Do you have an auditable standard? What is the standard? Maybe you will start saying I have SA 8000. I think in can you hear me, all of you? Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we
can.
can.
Don't say SA 1000 is very difficult to comply. Yeah. Don't say ETI base code, that's also difficult to comply. So do you have any Malaysian standard which is auditable, which is available palm oil industry? That means the growers, the users, or even rubber industry, or where, because we have gloves and all that, they also they can know what is forced labor. Yeah, do you have such standard? Or even logistic nowadays have to comply, especially you supply to electronics. You have to comply to a standard called RAB, Code of Conduct, a focus on forced labor and decent work. Yeah. So do you have any auditable standard in Malaysia which is auditable, which have the word shall? There's no guidance in it. Yeah. Where address all the forced decent work, about discrimination, about your hostel accommodation, about your canteen, about the safety, about PPE, about forced labor, child workers, young workers, living wages. What another thing is benefits. Yeah, because sometimes we feel that for foreign workers, you need not give all the benefits, and also free to associate themselves, harassment, all these things. So please go back again. can we pose again this question? After the first one, you say yes. Now I want to know whether your answer is yes or you change your answer. Please be truthful, because we should not unknowingly affect our economy, especially if you are. I'm from Ministry of Primary Industry or scheme owner. I have to make sure that the standard is very right, so that you cannot wait for 3-4 years, because 3-4 years there'll be a different requirement. And I would like to say that the estates growers will be able to meet it. When you set up the standard, don't look at the growers whether they comply or not. You have to look at the sustainability issues internationally. Don't look at your own. Don't say the members want this. Don't say technical working group said this is the one. No, this is a Malaysian standard. So everybody have to contribute, especially those in the Ministry of Primary Industry and Plantation. They're talking about strategy. They're thinking of suing people. First, look back. What is our certification scheme? Is it robust? And also look at the standards. Yeah, I'm not running down anybody because I believe in continual improvement. In social system, please remember, we know there be a lot of weakness. We know. And we know you can take corrective action. You will not be in 6 months. It will take time. In ISO 14001 also, environmental management system, their weakness, we give them time to comply. So don't think once you write in the standard, they'll comply. But at least they know they need to comply. Yeah, I can give you an example. I gone to in 2006 or 7, I did a audit for Bank of Scotland in a furniture company. Yeah, I went to audit a company which don't understand standards on ETI based code. When I audited, actually they comply to all the requirements, including freedom of association, forced labor, anything. They have a lot of migrant workers. They comply to all the requirements. Yeah, and they were really very good. The MD was there and the QA manager. They told me, I don't know the standard, but you can audit us. It's a furniture company. Yeah? That means you will expect they do not comply to forced labor. And they comply. Everything, in fact, what I stated in the standard, just know they comply. What's the reason? Because it's a foreign-owned company. They make sure that the workers are the one who have plucked the quality fruits. It's not the managers or anybody else or the corporate office. It's the workers who are plucking. I'm not a, what do you call it? Somebody will say you're a union member. I'm not a union member. I'm just giving my own experience. The workers are the one who add value to your organization. They are one who will pluck all the fruit, make sure the CPO there. In the estate, the estate manager can take care of all the workers. Yeah, I don't know whether you can hear me, because if the estate manager can take care of all the workers, yeah, what will happen is that they'll pluck good fruits. You'll find that you have good, what do you call it? Good yield. But if you shout at them, it's definitely, you're not good. If the manager shout and all that, discriminate and all, don't do forced labor things on Malaysians and foreign workers, I'm confident the yield will be very low. So please, HR need to motivate workers, not to punish them. Punishment is not a motivation. It's the olden concept. The new concept, and taking a passport is not the way to motivate workers. And I always have talked to workers. Workers say, mau cabut, if I want to leave the job, want to cabut, boleh cabut, tak payah passport. They can just leave without taking your passport. So holding a passport of foreign worker is not an easy way out. Your HR need to make sure that they are not hiring and firing. They should not be hiring and firing people. They should be doing strategic HR. Don't outsource to outsource party. Do yourself. And if it's the corporate doing it, they should understand what is the requirement for forced labor and decent work. So what is the answer? Just want to ask the poll question again. What's the answer? Is there any answer on that? Oh, so there's a shift now. So majority, I think more than 2/3 said they don't have. So please, if you are a grower, if you are a miller, you are in charge of refinery or whatever standard you have, try to influence them to make sure the standard is right. Don't simply come up with the standard because I have a deadline to comply. My advice, if your existing standard is not right, just cut it off, whether it's at what stage it is, just tear it off, start on a new piece of paper. please do re-engineering. And nowadays we don't have time to think out of the box because there's no more boxes. People say think out the box. Be innovative. Think a different way of doing things. Please look into what you need to do properly. Try to help the industry, please. We need to help the industry. If not, we need to help the economy of the country. Yeah, it's not that we want to make very tight, we are very happy. No, we want to make sure that our oil palm product can be exported overseas. There is no bans. And please, when your directors are speaking to any media, don't give any statement if they don't understand what is decent work, forced labor. Because when you start talking something, then it shows you don't know what is it, and you show your company weakness or organization weakness. So please, and your directors, if you're board of directors, especially a publicly listed company, get somebody who is competent in these subjects, because sustainability is now very important, whether it's climate change, forced labor, whether it's social system, whether it's about safety, it's very, very important. So please make sure that that your board of directors are aware, whether your GLP, whether your GLC, PLC, or even your normal groups and all that, have somebody, your directors and all that who are competent. And please, when you refer to lawyers, don't refer to old lawyers because their thinking is totally different. Refer to the youngsters. Even in some of the estates, I find some groups, the youngsters understand the requirement, but the bosses, general manager, they are not interested. They are more interested in production output. So please, whenever we are not saying you don't need production output, you need production output, but it should be in a sustainable manner. Okay, so I stop here. And in case you have any questions, because I have another half an hour in case you want to ask. Okay, can I answer questions from here, what I have? Now, here is one of the questions that I can't pronounce the name sometimes. This is a very good question. Could you give a period when you say give them time to comply when there is a major? Some of the certification body have written wrongly major, minor. That is the accreditation body and the scheme scheme managers to decide that we know that we have this problem. It's not 90 days. Usually we don't give 60 to 90 days for major. Some of the majors you need to have budgets. Yeah, but we don't want the budget to give a very long time. So usually we'll say you have this major, we know, please close within 90 days or 1 year or 1.5 years. And then when I'm doing audits, I'll not be doing audit annually. I'll be auditing 6 months if you have major. So that I want to see the progress of the major, whether you're doing anything or not. So please don't. So the auditors and the accreditation body and the scheme should come up with certain this type of issues. So tell them. Repeating my question, could you comment on the best practice guidance to plantation, how to utilize piece rate? Please, and now we do another thing about piece rate. Piece rate, there's another way. I think this is not the right way, right place to discuss, because this is only we are looking at the gap. Piece rate also we have a way of doing it. I think certain of the scheme, they have a decent work and all that. In fact, I want to discuss with them. I don't know, they don't want to discuss. They cut me off, and usually the email, they will not reply. They don't have time because they are firefighting somewhere. So actually the piece rate, you can come up with a system actually how to do it. Actually for decent wage, there can be a lot of ways of doing it, decent wage. Yeah. And actually I have a web-based system to do that, decent wage. And I think most of the scheme managers are not interested in that because they want to give something. When I give them free, even for greenhouse, I say I give you free, still they don't want. Remote auditing, COVID, yes. You cannot check on site. This is very true. I think one of the person asked me, I think this is a very experienced auditor. I think it's James Ong from SGS. We have this problem of COVID, but it's quite difficult to see on site. So you can use video. And there's even in this one, Zoom, you have a lot of AI or what they call it, structure. Even you're using handphone, Zoom will tell this participant is using handphone. It's not focusing on the training, Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to find out whether the person is telling you lies, showing you something. So only thing you can use video. Document records, you can always go into their system like Zoom, then ask them to show me, share with me. So another one is Palma and Span. No, one of the thing always I don't understand, I think Alex asked this question, is that we spend US 8 to 12 per ton. One of the things is to use wrong consultants to do your consultancy, yeah? Because consultants charge 150,000, 900,000. And please remember, not only this, your organization, I know one organization, they spend 600,000 to prepare a sustainability report. But to train the work manager, assistant manager, they want me to do free. So the priorities are different. So don't blame on the certification fees. Don't blame on training fees because you are spending on something else. GRI reporting, you're spending a lot of money on that, especially some plantation group. They're spending money to a lot of things to do green type of washing. I hope it's not green job. So it's not a burden because this is the way whenever you do business, it should be in a sustainable business. It's unfair to other industry like electronic industry, the food industry, the toy industry. In Malaysia, they have to comply to all this. In fact, you are very lucky. Nobody is forcing you. And please, I don't understand why growers or mills want extra money if they are certified. By right, it should be part of your operation. It's a legal requirement. It's not a burden. It's your priorities are wrong. It's not about profitability to auditors. Yeah, please look into your corporate, how much you're spending on other things, on CSR project, maybe giving something, I don't understand, maybe something or whatever. So there are a lot of CSR projects where they spend a lot of money. So please don't look at consultancy, don't spend so much. Don't use Big Four to do an audit. Don't do whitewashing. When you do whitewashing, you spend a lot of money on whitewashing, Okay, then please correct me wrong, the latest requirement, housing inspection worker standard, can be 2 months, yes. Then that's the thing. Our friend here, Mr. Ling, he said it's not weekly, it's two times a week. That is what we need, the feedback from stakeholder. Where if I write weekly, say no, I want bi-weekly because the law say weekly would be troublesome. No problem. That's what you need to contribute. Yeah. So this is good. Give contribution that this need to be done. The law says so. Very good. Maybe the sustainability for local international. Maybe you want to have another scheme. MPOCC look for the local market because they want to make sure everybody qualify. Then you have another scheme by MITI and whatever for international market. I don't know. Yeah, typhoid and all that. Sorry, wrong spelling. It's typhoid vaccination for food. Whether for industry you have to do that typhoid vaccination, which you have to do it every 3 years. I find no comply should be given to, I don't know, this person says so. Thank you for correction. Just now I did say there's a lot of errors because it was in 2019 when I wrote it. So piecemeal, same thing. This one, there's someone talking about, can you recommend or comment on the best in practice? And I think better talk to your scheme because they are in charge, because they do not want me to involve. So I think let them. What deduction does not making less than? What deduction do? What have? I think there are one person. I'm going backwards actually from. This is also on. Where can? Oh, this is my personal copyright document. The standard, I just want to show that this is the way. I did try to show to the scheme managers or even to others, they are not interested. This is the way it should be. I say you all do on your own, but this is the way. Because this is based on my experience in implementing sustainability management system in estates, different size, in mills, in refineries, in biodiesel plant. So yes, all indicators must have the word shall. If no shall, you cannot give any NC. It's not auditable standard. Smallholders is, I think, leave it to 40. Don't say 1,000 because like that everybody shops nearly put certificate, but you cannot export. Then coming to smallholder make out 20%. Just because the 20%, 80% cannot meet the international standard. Then smallholders we have a different standard for them. Yeah, we understand. There are a lot of ways to go around this standard. Try not to make so many standards. That if the scheme holders and accreditation body is interested, I can talk to the Ministry of Primary Industry or MITI. I can talk to you, but usually you all don't have the time. It's very, okay. In Malaysian government policy is not conforming to international. How estate owner? That's the reason that one of Alex asked, how can they position themselves? So that's the reason you have to use your influence. The directors of the schemes, the CEOs and OMD, all that, of the scheme managers who are running the scheme, you should influence them. Please go for international. Look at the international emerging sustainability issue on decent work, about forced labor. Don't look at our laws and regulation. Law and regulation definitely you have to meet. There's another question from Ong also. MSPO requirement says indicator all operations are in compliance with local law and national law, international rectify. Cannot use the word rectify. Don't show your weakness. This is auditable, but the word because I'll take Personal Data Protection Act. Are you complying with it or not? I can give an NC based on that. Whether I want to give major or minor, it depends on the auditor. Internal auditors should have picked up corporate. We are corporate internal auditors. They should have picked up this. Is there any management system in control? Is there any management system and control management audit that have policy development on forced labor? Yes, there is. You have to read a lot. This is by Alex also. Is there any management system in control management system audit and policy development on forced labor policy development? Though at human resource, that I don't know, because about housing and all that. When if I'm a social system auditor, SA 1000 or other system, if the law is very lenient, I want to follow international requirement. Migrant worker needs social protection for retirement. This also, they are making a decision to come to Malaysia. Unfortunately, I don't know who is the one. Alex also. Piecemeal, we already discussed. So once it's one of the risks that you can have the accreditation body, they have a risk management. In case the certification body is going to do an audit on a organization, estate or plantation or mill, they need to do a risk assessment. So this can be a part of risk assessment. One of the things, do you hire migrant workers? Do you pay based on piecemeal method? Then you can have more days to audit. Yeah. So this should be part of the accreditation requirement. I was involved. That was in year 2008 or what, in this setting up the requirement. And that time was a different requirement because we were trying to do for RSPO accreditation. So another thing is irregular workers. You cannot be telling we have irregular workers, because a lot of time there's some estate, the top guys say, I lost 5 million because I don't have workers to harvest. I said, you lost 5 million. I said, why not give 1 million to local workers and ask them to harvest at least about 4 million one. So not think out of the box, be innovative. Migrant workers need social protection for retirement, as they spend most productive years of their life in migrant workers at the host country. Is it? No, about social things. One of the things, social standards actually, unfortunately, they want you to hire local people. Local people, because they don't have work. Then what happened is that, because if you, sorry to say, if you bring migrant workers, there's a lot of ethical issues involved. Yeah, because a lot of ethical issue, and usually for migrant workers, you pay more, especially in manufacturing. The agent will take so much money and all these things. So a lot of things is migrant workers. You cannot say about social protection, because in their home country, because they can't even earn certain money, that's the reason they want to come. So we have to give them decent wage, because part of the decent wage, there's also some money they have to save. So it's part of it. Decent wage calculation, I mentioned last week. Decent wage calculation cannot be for area, it should be for individual estate. And 50% of people who are calculating basic decent wage should be workers. And migrant workers should be included. You have to pay for them for telephone, for saving, for movies, for education of their children, for food, for decent housing and all that. So in fact, one of the schemes, they are not interested. I told them, even I make a web-based system, simple, they're not. Okay, now, estate owner always pass dirty laundry or forced labor to no, you can't do that. So the CB auditors, and usually when you go and audit, you can, the auditor should give their information about not only theirs, maybe even about the scheme and all that, where they can report. And nowadays, some workers from overseas are very highly educated. They're very, very smart. Yeah. So don't mislead yourself thinking workers are stupid. Yeah. Sorry for using the word stupid. I apologize for that. They know everything, because sometimes you tell them, ini, they say, saya tahu hak manusia, saya tak tahu. So they know. So the auditor is the one who should be checking the subcontractors, even the stakeholders. Whenever you are auditing subcontractors, go to their site as an auditor. Don't ask them to come to the estate. When they come to the estate, or even the stakeholders, they prepare all the document with the estate ready. And the estate already warned them that in case you do this, I'll report to the authorities. Yeah. Another thing, if you are estate, corporate office, or mill and all that in palm oil industry, please do not sue NGOs. Do not say it's my right. Okay, so the subcontractor should be audited. First, the estate or plantation or the mill should be doing due diligence, checking on them, and then after that, a certification auditor. It's only clearly say male and female, it should be more than that, because there's transgender nowadays. So now we talk about no discrimination, then it should be more than that. So I'm just a joke I was telling. Yes, there's healthcare protection, Alex. Yes, there is, because the company should provide. Yeah, one of the things, this one is very important. And I think this also is by James. I think, James, I really appreciate, because yesterday I was training on risk, and there was somebody who asked a lot of questions. I like it. So this type of training should be actually like a workshop based. One of the things is that CUMD pass compliance requirement. Lemon used the word compliance, I don't mind, to sustainability and personal lower level, they don't themselves get themselves involved. And that shows, I give you my own example. When I did training for, even I can mention name, Texas Instruments, that's the first time they're going for sustainability audit, which include labor, ethics, safety, and they have to do risk assessment. Quite a difficult standard, RBA code of conduct. When they did that, and first thing, when we are doing the training, every day 4 o'clock, that plant, there are 4,000 workers, 4,000 employees, including workers, maybe workers more than 3,000, including migrant workers. Every day 4 o'clock, all the directors must sit in the MD room and give an update what they are doing. So in case the MD, CEO, or even the chairman is not bothered, whether the chairman of scheme, certification scheme, or whatever, they don't know anything, they're not bothered, they pass to the juniors to do, you get all this type of problem. That's the reason the top management commitment, whether you're setting up the standard, whether whatever you are doing, it depends on the top level commitment. They must be involved. Yeah, even I do business continuity management projects and all that. If the COO and CEO is involved, very fast done. They are not involved, nobody bothers. They pass the buck. And the junior most have no thing to see. Like say, there's a sustainability team in a group. They have no say, they're the corporate, they have few hundred estate, but they have very good reports on sustainability, but the sustainability have no say. Everything go back to the general manager who is in charge of group of estate. And to him, production output is very important. The estate manager, production output. So this is about, we need to have leadership by walking around. So this one we cannot help. So I hope the University of Nottingham and others can focus on that. And even this training, they should be here. The CEOs, the directors, so that they know. If they're interested, they'll be here. Okay. Any other questions? There's no more question, I think. Any questions? Do anyone have questions? There's because we're learning, because some of you may not know, even the standard setters may not know and all that. Some of you will be very new to this forced labor or decent work. What is it? How you handle it? How you, if I'm the grower, I'm the mill, I'm the refinery, how to implement it? So if you have a very good standard, which is systematic, don't intra-audit, be putting in the first principle. Management review is wrong actually. How that should be later. Yeah, and don't say that we have no choice, we want to just, so as growers and all that, use your influence as retailers to say that we need a right standard. COVID-19 vaccination was whatever you saw created within a short period. This also can be done. You can come up with a standard within 1 month, 2 months. No one to drag for 2 years, 3 years, you know. Just come up within 1 month, you can come up with a good standard. Yeah. So I don't understand why there should be a dragging of standard. I know there's a lot of resources in terms of money, in terms of power, manpower, in terms of the effort used. So that's the reason. So is the standard, somebody asked me, this is a standard created by me, not even accepted by the scheme in Malaysia, because they have their own standard. So this is just a dummy standard to show how it should be addressed. The requirements in sustainability, especially on forced labor and decent. And if you are really want to implement, you can use this way. Yeah, actually, they're already, and you can have a web-based software to implement all these sustainability requirements. Very simple, and you can use a mobile phone to update. There are a lot of ways for implementing. Don't use the 20 years ago type of techniques. Now the new concepts are coming up, and so you say, is this standard accepted by USA? Definitely it's not accepted because it's not accepted locally also. So I hope the accreditation body, I think some of the assessors from ASI and others like Standard Malaysia is here. I hope you understand what a standard, you know, I think what the standard is, what is the requirement, then you know whether it's a management standard or it's a standalone type standard, whether can use ISO IEC 17221 part 1 year 2015 as accreditation standard because it's for management system or not. So I hope there's an input. Okay. Should the standard be proposed to any set? Somebody asked me, Nadia, is it for MPOB? Please, MPOB, it's very important that you play your part because you are a regulatory body. And in fact, I attended some of the meeting with the minister in olden days, maybe that was before, around COVID time, but before, not the current. So very important, MPOB, make sure you have your representative in the, maybe the board, tell them that we need to have a good standard for the, to make sure that our standards are recognized around the world. We do not have forced labor, decent work issue around the world. We can tell the international community we cannot meet this requirement. We are having our plan to meet, but please do not show our weakness in the standards by creating standard. Don't, and just like vaccine, was created within a very short time. Standards can also be created, like a standard for this one can be created within 3 months, within 1 month. Doesn't mean to drag. Yeah. So don't spend so much money on dragging the standard. So I, as Nadia from MPOB have asked, should the standard be proposed to any certification? You cannot propose to certification body because the scheme manager in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, for palm oil, I think you all can correct me, is RSPO and MPOCC. RSPO, the standard is set up by the by their members. They don't look at the emerging sustainability issue. Is what the members think it should be. Yeah. For MPOCC, the standard is set up by certain people in a group, and they say that's the thing we cannot change. That is wrong. So I hope all of you who are stakeholders can give your input to them that we need to come up with a better standard. Yeah, it's not the certification body also need to tell. Standard Malaysia also need to tell. The accreditation bodies need to tell, and also the retailers, the big brands need to tell everybody. So there's a request that you give your feedback on for this session here. I hope you learn a lot of things because this is a very short session. I cannot go very detailed, But I just want to start thinking what is forced labor. Forced labor doesn't mean just put there discrimination. We should be more detailed about disciplinary procedures and all that. So do you have any question? I think you can open up a mic and ask me. I don't mind answering. We have about 10-15 minutes if you want to ask any question. Please, again, be innovative in setting the standard, because we are looking, you have no time to wait. Somebody will say, one of the scheme manager, the employee said, staff said that we will go with this standard. Mid or not, we will go with this standard. You will have a new standard 5 years time. You don't have 5 years, especially MPOB and Ministry of Primary Industry. Please think we don't have the time 5 years to come up with a new standard. Start now. You shorten the period. Don't take 2 years. Take 1-2 months. You can do it. Malaysia boleh lah. Yeah, do in the right way.
Mr. Majid.
Yeah.
My name is Alex. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
I want to like what we call review on your situation with regard to the pension.
Yeah.
So as far as the hiring cost, it should be part of the operational cost involved. And then as far as what we got the right for the pension is actually is a basic right of a worker. We cannot have a double standard of local and the migrant workers. I believe that if the audit standard is based on, because what you mentioned is actually based on the perspective of the employer.
Yeah.
We also have to what we call to consider those who spend 10 years, 20 years in a plantation and then go back with nothing, and how are they going to survive? Of course, when you're talking about saving by their own for the old age, I think that is actually is part of the logic. But why Malaysian has the pension fund for their own plantation worker while ignore the what we call the basic pension fund right for the migrant worker?
Okay, it's a very good question. Actually, this come under decent wage. I think will be very detailed to discuss. But I'll tell you something. Maybe we have a decent wage for local workers, one for foreign workers. But please remember, the foreign, I shouldn't say that, sorry, I do not want to say that. But maybe we have decent wage for foreign workers and local workers, and the social saving should be part of it. Yeah. Then in the decent wage, we can say how much we are going to give. How much should be the insurance and social saving. Then no need to have two, no need to have migrant and local. Is it provided by the grower or the mill or the refinery? Yes, automatically goes off from the decent wage. It's part of the decent wage. So maybe we have decent wage, two decent wage. But Alex, I have told you that what in social system we want is, we want to reduce corruption, bribery, because whenever you hire migrant workers, we are giving them work. But also, there's a lot of bribery involved because some people are involved, this, that, and all that. And we pay very high price for it. Yeah. So the company had to make a decision how you handle whether for foreign workers, whether you want to write in the standard. But Alexa, in the standard, we have not written anything. So that's the reason why now we start out with something. This we'll write later. But we start talking about, I'm understanding your point. It's very good. But we start talking about the social scheme for the foreign workers. Yeah. Then what happened is that, there will be another issue there, social scheme. Okay. We start talking about social scheme so that they go back on money. Yeah. Then what will happen that we are focusing on this, that the main one we didn't tackle. So we try to tackle the main issues, at least 90-95% of it. This we leave it out. Later we come back. Forever we don't have any standards. That's part of the continuous improvement. But coming back to forced labor, if you hire a foreign worker and then you deduct certain wage from him, and a company is paying some wage, yeah, then you say, I want to save this wage. At the end, when you leave, I give you. That become forced labor. If you follow the definition of forced labor. So this we can talk off the line, because there's a lot of, you have to look at a lot of aspects, not only one. You give social security, the company deduct the pay of the foreign workers, it becomes forced labor. You can't even give loans to workers, whether local or foreign workers. Why? Become bonded labor. Yeah, you cannot give them education loan. Only you can give, let's say, for 12 months, and deduction of salary should be 10% of their basic wage. Cannot be more than that. There are a lot of things you can bring, but then we don't have the basic on the forced labor and decent wage. We're already talking certain things which is difficult to comply. So my advice is go in stages. Just like when I did my first training to one of the electronic companies on that time we call it EICC Code of Conduct, which focus on labor, focus on safety, focus on environment, ethics, and management system. When I give the training, this is a big multinational. This must be about 20 years ago. They don't believe. They say, why I cannot keep the passport? Why I'm not keeping, the agent is keeping. I should say, the agent also cannot keep. They say, where in the standard is stated? It's not stated. But later they upgrade it and they include in the standard. So why not we start something? And now they have converted EICC Code of Conduct to RBA Code of Conduct. It's very, very strict. If a company doesn't want to comply, it's very easy. They lose their business. A lot of companies come to me, when the business IBM refused to buy, Apple refused to buy. There are so many majors. And when they got major or priority, not major, priority, all their customers will know. So the customer have the chance to buy from other countries. So we had to be competitive in our palm oil industry. So we had to come up with strategies and all that. Okay, so please look into that. There's a lot of other areas. We better tackle the big issues rather than this. Alex, I do agree with that. And someone did say that a pension is not a necessary right. Decent wage calculation really covers saving. I did mention about that. Okay, so please look into all that. There are a lot of views, but please, at least we win 90–95% now. Yeah. Do you agree on that, or how is it? Okay, Kabir is there. Kabir, any question? It's North-South initiative, is it? Shall I stop here? How is it? Do you have any questions? Who is that? Alex, you are very, very hands-on consultant. Hey, thank you very much. I always believe we should do standard which is doable. Don't write standard which we cannot do. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Alex. But nobody want to talk to me, whether it's the scheme managers or anybody. Yeah. Can we write to you if you are? Actually, apart from that, can I share back at the slide? Can I share my slide again?
Yeah, can. No worries.
I share the slide. Can you all see my slide? Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, one of the things I have here is, actually I'm starting certification training. That means, I don't know whether it's the right place to say or not. I'm to start training on sustainable implementer training. That means sustainable palm oil management system implementer training, which will be the international requirement, because our standards may be auditable, not auditable, you all decide. I also I'm starting a training on social system implementer training. How to do this? You will say, I cannot meet forced labor, I cannot meet certain issues. So the implementer of this. Another thing will be on climate change, especially on how to calculate greenhouse gas. Another thing is about sustainable palm oil, how to do internal auditor training, so that you can audit in an efficient and effective manner, right manner, so that you can add value to the organization rather than just auditing for the sake of auditing because I want to meet the certification body requirement. Apart from that, I've started some certification scheme for implementer certified certified palm oil management system implementer, certified social system implementer, and certified sustainable oil management system internal auditor. And you can contact me. Please note, this will be tough, not tough. I want to make sure it's a common sense being used. Not to train in something which you cannot do. It will be more practical, hands-on training. Apart from that, there'll be another training for certification body and assessors, especially if you want to talk about occupational health and safety auditor training, because we are going to audit, sorry, not PALM, PALM, there's PALM, wrong spelling, apologize. So occupational health and safety, how can I audit occupational health and safety? What should I look for? Yeah, especially for palm oil and mills and estate. Another thing will be social system auditor. Let's say I've gone for a certain training. They will not cover social system. So here only social system, how to audit. And also climate change, how to audit climate change, where should I look for? Environmental auditor, specific, then maybe sustainable palm oil lead auditor training, and that will be a certification scheme. And this will be a accredited schemes, certified social system auditor, certified sustainable palm oil. I want to have auditors who have hands-on, who can audit, not just get a certificate but don't know how to audit, because there are a lot of certification around. So this will be accredited schemes, the certification. So just like I did say, you have any issues, any questions, and this is my details in case you want to contact me. Okay. Any questions? I like discussions because we have different views. We can come to a single view, rather than I telling this is the standard, this will be the standard. So if anybody want any question, actually I'm going to put a WhatsApp group under this telephone number on sustainability, whether it's for palm oil. So if you have any issue, we can discuss in the WhatsApp group. That'll be better. So another thing, maybe that's the reason, if you have some problem, you can put in WhatsApp. We can help each other to make sure we comply with certain international requirements. Okay, now it's exactly 12 o'clock, and I'd like to thank everybody for for attending this. So I really appreciate. So if anyone want any questions, you can write to me. Please, I'm not very diplomatic. So if something's wrong, so I say something's wrong. I think it's better to be that rather than trying to be diplomatic. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. Can we stop here?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thanks
I
so
hope
much.
everybody gains something that's value adding. Okay. Thank you very much for all of you
Thank
for
you, sir.
attending, and also for University of Nottingham to give me opportunity to present this. Yeah. And thank you very much.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone. Before you all go, I pasted in the chat a link to register for tomorrow's stream. See the speakers and the topics for tomorrow are on the screen. If you are interested, please do register for it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Amajid, for giving such an
You're
insightful
welcome.
and comprehensive training today.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Take care, everybody.
Okay. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.